We're building the largest battery chemical complex outside of China in the world. And what we produce is basically 40% of the battery cost. And the battery is typically 40% of the vehicle's cost.
Yes.
So what we're producing is actually 15% of an electric vehicle. They're typically looking at investments of 3 lakh crores to 4.5 lakh crores a year.
What stands out in a leader that you really look for, and then how have they executed?
At the leadership level, you need to be passionate. What do you want to do? What is your ambition? You need to have a flair for numbers. If you don't know numbers, you can't deal with me. Because my vision is very clear. I can be very soft and I can be very ruthless. I've been working now for about 17 years, but this is probably the most exciting time. What we're investing this year across the group is more than what we've invested in the group over the past 15 years.
Oh, wow.
The day you think you've arrived in life, or the day you think you're the best, is going to be the beginning of your downfall. Many people say, lakh kharab chal raha tha. Roz lakh nahi aata. Don't ignore any competitor, because those guys who are chota, they are the most hungry because they have nothing to lose.
Correct.
The big boys are lethargic and lazy.
Right.
They are the ones who will lose first. These chotus come from the back and they become king.
Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching.
Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host, Devansh, and today I have with me an extremely special guest. I'm used to usually chatting with tech entrepreneurs who have scaled successful companies, but this gentleman is building a group of companies that is totally valued at more than 85,000 crores in the public markets and another 70,000 crores in the unlisted markets. He understands scale, manufacturing, renewable energy, and everywhere that India is headed in the next 10 years. Join me in welcoming Mr. Devansh Jain, who's an executive director with Inox GFL, the group that has Inox Wind, Inox Solar, and many other companies that we're going to talk about today. Thank you so much, Devansh, for joining me.
Thank you, Jivraj. This is I uncalled for introduction, but appreciate it.
I'm so excited to be hosting you because, as I said, I'm usually used to talking with a very other set of entrepreneurs, but you built something so massive, so forward looking, and you're just getting started, it looks like, because of the momentum that you currently have, the energy with which you were talking about in the last 15 minutes also when you shared context, and it's been 10-15 years you're in the business, and it looks like you have so much more to do. So I'm super excited to understand everything that you do, to be honest.
Equally, I'm glad this could work out. We've been planning this for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say, I've been working now for about 17 years.
Yes.
But this is probably the most exciting time since I've been working. I mean, just a simple thing, what we're investing this year across the group is more than what we've invested in the group over the past 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So there's never a better time than it is now. And I think under Modi ji, the kind of push, the kind of ambition we have, particularly in energy transition, I think as a group, we're trying to leverage each and every piece and pie of it. I truly believe, I think, while India will be a leader across the board, for us at Inox GFL, I think we could be one of the largest groups in India getting this strategy right.
No, absolutely. I think the fundamentals, the belief that you want to be the best in every industry that you enter, the kind of forward-looking thinking is absolutely massive. And the scale of operations that you are in, I think, is very inspirational for many entrepreneurs. So I think that's what I want to decode across the next 1 hour. What might be a good place to start, Devansh, is just surely understanding the different kind of things that you do. So for the public entities, public investors are aware, but appealing to the startup audience, the entrepreneurs, right? If you can break down for us the group itself, right? Like Inox GFL, and then the different things that you are championing in very quick layman terms. I think that will give us a great context to sort of chat further about.
So I think very simplistically put, the Inox GFL Group is in two primary verticals, chemicals and renewable energy. So under chemicals, you have a listed company called Gujarat Fluoro, which is probably the largest fluorine player in India. It's the largest, something called PTFE, what you typically would know as Teflon, which is a Jupa product. Our product is Inoflon. We're probably the world's second largest fluoropolymer producer. So that's a very B2B company, not something which everyone understands. But what we're very excited about also is we're building the largest battery chemical complex outside of China in the world. We're doing that in an entity called GFCL EV, where we've publicly committed an investment of close to about 7,000-8,000 crores. We've already pumped in close to 2,000 crores. We've recently raised capital at a 3 billion valuation in that entity. So basically what we're doing there in layman's terms, we're making products which get used in ESS, energy storage systems, EVs. And what we produce is basically 40% of the battery cost, typically.
Wow.
And the battery is typically 40% of the vehicle's cost.
Yes.
So what we're producing is actually 15% roughly of an electric vehicle. Of course, energy storage is lesser, but 15% of an electric vehicle, which is the single largest pie in in the supply chain.
Yeah.
So that's the battery, that's the chemical and the battery arm.
Sure.
We're doing a couple of other things around green hydrogen, electrolyzers, but that's still niche, smaller, so I won't bore you with those details. I think on the renewable side, we've primarily got 2 listed entities, and we've got a couple of ventures which are being built out, hopefully listed at some point in time.
Sure.
So the main listed entity is a company called Inox Wind, which I think is India's second largest wind turbine manufacturing company, where we supply turbines, do turnkey projects. It was a company which went through hell
Yes.
for 5 years. We are the only company in India, an Indian company, which survived in spite of almost 30 closing, going bankrupt, with zero haircut to any bankers. That company is listed, and the parent of that company put together is today valued at close to about 36,000 crores. I don't think it's anywhere close to where it should be, but I think we're very excited about building it, and I think we've got all the building blocks in place to scale that up. Under that entity, we've got 2 legs. One is called Inox Green Energy Services, which is listed, which is the world's first listed green O&M company. So that's a company where once you sell a turbine, you do operations and maintenance, what I would call jhadu pocha.
Yeah.
But this is far more complex than that.
Of course.
And it's a pure play annuity business, very high margins, typically operate at 50% margins. We've recently crossed 4 gigawatts of operations there. We've publicly stated we want to be a 10 gigawatt company over the next 2 years. And I think we should get there much faster, hopefully. We've also raised capital there for multiple acquisitions. So looking at a lot of opportunities. So that's something which I'm very excited about building as well. Then there's another arm which is being demerged from Inox Wind. That's our EPC arm, the project execution arm. That's a company called Inox Renewable Solutions. So obviously I don't know how long SEBI and NSE and BSE take, but pending regulatory approvals, I would assume over the next year or so that should become a listed arm as well. Demerger, so not an IPO.
Sure.
That's an entity in which we control more than 5 gigawatts of project side inventory, almost 10 gigawatts plus of connectivity on the hybrid side, which is probably the largest connectivity pool, barring 1 or 2 other larger groups in India. It's a company where we've recently entered into cranes, so we've backward integrated. We have our own cranes now.
Nice.
We've gone into transformer manufacturing for our captive requirements. So just capturing the pies without spreading ourselves too thin.
Sure.
So these are the 2 listed arms and one soon to be demerged and listed arm.
Right.
The newest entity in the group, which is where I spend maximum time now, is an arm called Inox Clean Energy, which is privately owned, where we've raised capital again. That's an entity which we hopefully will list at some point in time. It has 2 legs to it. One is a company called Inox Neo Energies and another called Inox Solar. So Inox Neo is our IPP arm. This is where we're setting up about 4 gigawatts in the next 2 years. It's probably going to be the fastest ever build out of a gigawatt in India in the first year of operation, which we are currently executing on ground. And Inox Solar is our solar manufacturing arm,
Right.
where we're setting up close to 5 gigawatt of module and cell manufacturing capacity. So I think our module plant should go live this month, 10-15 days. Our cell plant should go live in the next 6 months. And then, that should be one of the largest. We'll probably double that as we move forward. So that's an entity which is seeing a lot of capex, a lot of investments. We want to make it a very large annuity play, plus a cash cow through solar. So excited about that.
Super.
That's basically the whole group: renewables, chemicals, and then there are a couple of other things in the private domain, our family office, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
But that's not something where we spend too much time, because we would rather spend our time building and creating value. Hopefully.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that walkthrough. I think that's very comprehensive as an expression of what all you do. I'm curious to understand, when you entered, what was it like, right? Like, paint us a picture. 17 years back, you're a 28-year-old person coming back from CMU, very young, new energy.
Sorry,
what was that like?
Not 28. When I came back was 2007.
Okay.
I was
Which is
21.
about 8. Okay, you were 21.
So don't look that old, do I?
No. Then I got my facts wrong. Actually, that's my bad, because in the interview somebody distinctly pointed out that you were 28 when you came back. So that's on me.
I listed the first entity. I listed Inox Wind.
Which was in 2015.
That was 2015.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I was 28
That
and a
makes
half,
sense. Okay.
right?
That math makes sense.
So when I came back, so basically, as they say, you eat, breathe,
Right.
sleep business, right?
Sure.
And in my context, clearly was that I always wanted to come back early, get into work. With dad, it was always about numbers all the time.
Right. This
Drilling,
is pre
training,
going to the US as
before
well,
going to
like
college.
school as well.
Right,
Like
school.
what were dinner table conversations like? Let's maybe
No,
do
it
that.
wasn't too much of work that time, but dad was always, you see your father,
Plugged in.
yeah, he's always working and thinking of things and growing and growth and new ideas and new opportunities. So I don't know from when, I was always obsessed with working and building and creating. And, so at that point in time, dad had built a business. We had a split in our family about 3 years back. Some of those went away, but used to get those MISs. And I was told, you need to know all the numbers. You would ask me anything. What was the margin here? How many did we sell? What was the occupant? Whatever it was.
Yeah.
So right from an early age, numbers were always in my head, and I'm eating, breathing, sleeping numbers.
Yeah.
And dad was always the risk taker. So virtually all the businesses were created, built by him. You got to take that risk.
Sure.
Either you can be very comfortable and say, "No, I'm very big," or "I'm very happy," or "I'm content." You're beyond a point in time, you don't need money, right?
Yeah.
But dad is forever going after new ventures. I mean, even if you look at it now, what we're doing at Inox Clean, as I mentioned to you, our capexes this year are more than what we've done since the inception of this group. Right? We're taking calls, we take decisions, we build, we run. And so, I think early days, early training, always build, create something. I used to make diaries. I used to sell that. It was for pocket money. I did carpentry. I used to make a lot of stuff and sell that.
Wow.
Silly things, in today's time. But back in the day, it wasn't the Wi-Fi age. It wasn't the Nintendo, PlayStation age, and so on and so forth. So what do? You play cricket. You were running. You were doing something or the other.
Yeah.
I loved carpentry. I loved creating, building stuff. I made newsletters, which I used to sell, just by the way.
Wow.
So those are some of the things which just come to my mind now.
Sure.
And then when I went to college, obviously, so I did a dual degree and came back in 3 years. I went to Carnegie Mellon. I wanted to come back early because I just wanted to get into work. And
You didn't have any aspiration to stay back, work a bit?
Look,
none of
I
that?
always said if I want a holiday, right, and if I want to travel, I'll say that openly.
Okay.
I'm not going to convolute the conversation and say, I want to do an MBA with a 4-year degree, right? I did a dual in 3. A lot of people do, to be honest. Mom wanted me to work outside to get some exposure or whatever it may be. Dad was in two minds. He said, whatever you feel like doing, I'm cool with that. I was going to work with one of the large investment banks for a year. But then I said, look, if you don't work for more than 3 years, as they say, it's very basic work. Getting coffee with the boss, Excel numbers, blah, blah. I don't want to waste my life. I don't want a holiday at that point in time. I wanted to come back, and I'm grateful I came back. And that was a time when the group was looking at a diversification. So I spent a lot of time learning, absorbing. This was 2007. And in GFL Gujarat Fluoro, we operated the world's first UNFCCC approved, United Nations Framework for Climate Change approved, carbon credit project. Right? So renewables, energy transition, things which are the buzzword today, which were not the buzzword then, became like my meals every day. And that was the time we were working with McKinsey to try and work out a different business. And that's how Inox Wind and renewables and so on and so forth started.
Got it.
So, I think it's always been work. It's always been building, creating. Even today, I would say 99.99% of the conversations with dad are work. I mean, it's awkward if you don't discuss work. That 0.1 is changed because the kids enter the picture at times.
Sure. No, but that's super fascinating. Did you have the cognizance that you had to build for scale from the very start? What was aspiration like in 2007? And do you think you surpassed yourself, or are you is there more to do? Just from a frame of mind lens, because when you know that you're going to get into business, I've heard multiple perspectives on the show. So I'd love to understand what was your thinking back then.
To be frank, when you came back, when you're 21, I don't think I had any fixated opinion that I want to be the largest, I want to do this, I want to do that. Yes, we have to do things which create value.
Sure.
And to my mind, you are a leader, you're a creator, you create value as opposed to being a follower if you're amongst the top 3 sectors in which you operate. Just being a Me Too player, doing 20 different things and not being in a leadership position does not create value in terms of eventually listing and value creation, or in terms of supply chain efficiency, or in terms of creating the best teams to build businesses and run businesses. When I came back, I just wanted to work. I was shadowing all the senior people in our group, shadowing Dad. Used to go to sleep in many of the meetings because how much can you absorb? You know, I clearly like talking, just not talking and only absorbing.
Right.
But as I spent more time with Dad and the teams, and as it became more and more clear, because obviously that was formal work, right? Prior to that was informal, that you got to build things which are large. So it just became ingrained in the DNA that whatever I do has to be sizable. It can't be some me too time pass business just for the sake of it. And it took a long time. The first venture I was trying to build was Inox Wind. We had issues when we were building it, how we envisaged it. Actually, never wanted to make turbines. We were buying turbines from outside, but the returns which we expected were just a disaster. So we went back, what do? They said, you got to control your turbines. So I spent about 1.5 years in China, understanding supply chains, understanding technology. And then after coming back, I fought for a year to get 20 crores. So
To start that business.
But then there was no point. I mean, once you got it and you fought and you whatever you did, there was no question of failure. Yeah. It's not ki le liya, you're a rich guy or your father, chalo charity kar di. I didn't get it. I fought for a year to get 20 crores. And it's a large number, but it was a small number in one context also. 10 was put by the family, 10 was put by Fluoro.
Nice.
And then, my work hours used to be 17, 18 hours at that point in time. And I don't want to get into that controversy, how much should you work. Today, I probably work 9 hours, 10 hours, but I'm wired.
Right.
So early morning, I know what I'm doing. At 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 12, there's an issue, I'll be at 24 hours.
Right.
I don't think it's a question of time. It's about how efficient you can get, how good your team is. What do you need to do? When you're building newer things, you need to spend more time. When it's routine, I'm going to spend an hour as well. So that's how it came about, 2007 until now. Obviously, now the perspective is very different. Whatever we get into, we want to be the biggest and the best, or the top 3, like I say. If we aren't there, we don't evaluate those opportunities. And that's what we came into solar late, but we are planning to be amongst the top 3. Our IPP arm. So an IPP, you're not competing with anybody, right? You're selling power to the grid.
Right.
India needs so much power.
Absolutely.
But the scale at which we're going, like I said, is probably the fastest ever built out of a gigawatt in the first year of conception. We're looking at setting up multi-gigawatts every year. And that's not something people have done. We've seen a lot of companies now trying to do their IPOs. They're at about 2 gigawatt, 2.5 gigawatt in 10, 15 years of operation. We're aiming to do that in the first year and a half of operation. So that's broadly
the mindset shift.
how
It's
we're
like
doing things.
about being the best. No, that's amazing. That paints a picture and gives us a perspective to how much you've evolved as well. But the thinking of, being the best, being the biggest, being so aggressive, I think that's super evident and very, very, it rubs off, I think. So hopefully folks watching will take inspiration. Let's maybe take a step back. I'd love to understand from you, Devansh, as to how do you think about just energy consumption in general, right? And where are we headed? Like talk to us about the macro tailwinds that enable you to build large businesses, right? Like where are we from an energy consumption lens? Where is that headed from multiple renewable spaces? And then where does the opportunity lie? I think that'll clarify so much of what's happening.
Look, rather than giving very micro numbers on per capita consumption, I think it'll bore people. The larger perspective is India's a developing country and we're developing very, very fast. Whether we grow at 6%, 6.5%, 7%, our installed power base today is close to about 280, 290 gigawatts plus minus 30 gigawatts. So if you're growing at about 6 or 7%, power consumption is growing faster. For sake of simplicity, let's say we grow at about 8, 9%, right, in terms of power consumption. That means we need about 30 gigawatt, 25 to 30 gigawatt of actual power being added to the grid every year.
Right.
Under Modi ji, and I think it's a brilliant move. Globally, we've seen people do it. Under his political will, long-term vision, India is now moving towards being a clean nation. Without compromising our growth plans. And to be honest, today, you've got naysayers, but renewables is the cheapest source of power. It's way cheaper than any thermal power. Right. So to cut the crap, it is only renewable. So it's not even as if you're being subsidized and you're driving things. Now, renewables typically operates at about 30% utilization. Solar lower, wind higher. So if you need about 25 gigawatts of power at 30% utilization, means you need about 75 gigawatts of renewables being installed year on year. What is the government targeting? The government's targets are, let's do about 50 gigawatt of solar every year and about 20 gigawatts of wind every year. Where does this come from? From the 500 gigawatt target by 2030.
Yeah.
Wind is certain, solar is certain. And then 2070 is too far, where we want to be net zero. Now, how much are we doing? Putting aside the COVID years, last year we did about 4.5 gigawatt of wind. We did about 22 to 25 gigawatt of solar, which is probably the highest in the past 4 or 5 years. Hopefully this year wind would be 6-7 gigawatts, solar would be about 30 gigawatt. Obviously solar is more because you can go to every state. Wind is in 5 or 6 states. So this is where the opportunity lies. That if India is going to do 50 to 60 to 70 gigawatts a year, you need manufacturing, you need transmission, you need capital goods infrastructure of transformers, etc., etc. Obviously solar panels, modules, cells, wind turbines, towers, blades. What's also adding is the fact that given renewables is so cheap, you have something called C&I, commercial and industrial. A lot of people are moving away now under what we call open access and other grid policies, where they're just buying renewable energy. It's cheaper, and they don't need to pay that price to the grid. Sure. 2, if you're an exporter, you need green credentials. You now have CBAM coming up in Europe. Yeah. You have various countries where you get a slight premium if you're a green company. And third, obviously the larger groups, what they're doing is basically they're creating their own renewable arms. They get private equity or they fund it, eventually list it. So it's value creation there. Plus they're supplying renewable energy to the steel, cement, chemical ventures. Correct. And it's win-win across the board. Yeah, so
consumption also goes down.
I think this is where the opportunity is. India's growth, our energy requirement within that. I'm not talking much about, I would say thermal, a little bit of thermal pump storage, because those are smaller, very limited opportunities given that we need more power today. But this is where the large opportunity lies. And we're looking at investments. If you're doing 50 to 70 gigawatt every year, you're typically looking at investments of 3 lakh crores to 4.5 lakh crores a year, which is, roughly, let's say 45 to 50 billion dollars. So to my mind, the largest investments in India are going to be in this energy transition space. You have every large group trying to jostle and get a piece of this. But how do you create value? Just being a part of it is not something which creates value. And I think the second, obviously, piece where everyone is pouring billions is digital, right? Whether it's software, AI, data centers. Again, data centers, a lot of renewable energy. Yeah. So I think energy transition and digital data centers and so on and so forth probably are the two buzzwords. Defense is different.
Okay. Yeah. That's amazing. I think, again, very comprehensive overview of there being new supply that is required, new demand that will be required, and thus supply will follow. And thus where whoever will build prominent supply, which is more full stack and builds capabilities, will win. And
there's also protection coming in. I wouldn't say protection. There's also this whole focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? So you've seen that. Wind is no protection, right? Anybody can come and go, whatever. Right. You now have domestic content requirements, which are expected to come in. But solar, you've got ALMM, ALCM, which are basically, in general lingo, you have to make modules in India. You can't import it now. Yeah. Cells, which are the back end of modules. Absolutely. Now, from June 26, have to mandatorily be made in India. You can't import it. Right. So what India is also doing now, smartly, without getting into the crossholes of WTO and so on and so forth, they're saying we want to be Atmanirbhar. Everything needs to be done here. Yeah. Build for India, make in India.
100%. Well, that's amazing. Maybe let's also have broad commentary on just manufacturing as an ecosystem, right? Like we keep hearing that manufacturing is a big thing. It's going to be bigger with everything that's happening around tariffs as well. What has your experience been in, building the manufacturing sort of ecosystem in a space which is very nascent in India to begin with, right? Do you have thoughts around, how is that ecosystem developed? Do we need like more efficiency, etc.? Because we keep hearing that, China, for all good reasons, also has like a very evolved ecosystem there. Sure. What's your experience been?
Jivraj, to be honest, it's a little different from what other people say. Sure. And I said this once, people keep cribbing at times about PLI and subsidy and this duty and that duty. Yes, in certain areas, you need that when you are starting off. Because we have a neighboring country which dumps material many times. I'm not talking in today's context where for things and reasons, in the US, you have a lot of change happening there, and hence you have a lot of protectionism taking place in India and various places. But I truly believe, we have the ability and the capability to be brilliant and the best in manufacturing whatever we do. The challenge many times is हम मांगते रहते हैं. Subsidy दे दो, tax break दे दो, ये दे दो, PLI दे दो. Why? Why can't you be efficient? Why can't you keep your cost structures lean for the same quality product? I'm not talking of C grade versus A grade. If you're an A grade guy and competing with an A grade guy, there is no reason why we can't do it in India. You're now reading a lot about iPhones, you're seeing a lot about solar, wind turbines, chemicals. In fluoropolymers, I tell you, we're the world's second largest. It's really 2 or 3 Chemours, Daikin, us, Chemours is a DuPont spin-off, which we compete. It took a while, it took 4, 5, 6 years. We've created a niche. We're probably the largest in Europe, amongst the top 2 in the US. You gotta strive. Nothing is easy. Look, if you're gonna make high-end products, make high-end margins, you gotta strive. If you're just making some, and I mean no offense, if you're just making a rubber or a pencil or some commoditized item, then, to some extent it's just difficult. But I think where we're headed in India, I think there's more focus on advanced products, whether it was defense, whether it's now the energy transition electrolyzers, the energy transition ecosystem, whether it is green steel and other stuff. We got to do what we got to do. And I think we should stop cribbing and stop crying about competing with our neighboring country. We should rather focus on efficiency, technology, and being the best at what we do.
Yeah, no, that's very well put. Let's maybe now dive deeper into some of the business verticals to get a better sense of that. And from that, I think we just want a high-level overview of what happens in the background, right? Because again, from the front-facing aspect, there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of consumption, and then capacity is being increased. But then what do you have to do on the back end to enable some of this? Like how do you decide between capital expenditure? Where do you allocate capital? How do you think of greenfield opportunities? So maybe within maybe let's target wind, solar, and a couple of others. Can we start with solar? I'd love to understand how you sort of thought about how you're thinking about the entire ecosystem. How does your sort of plants come into the picture? How much investment goes into it? Again, the idea is to just provide a worldview of what happens on the back end to enable everything that you're doing at scale and at the size.
Before I go to solar, Jivraj, maybe I'll just try. So as a group now, what we're doing, obviously energy transition is a place where we are going hammer and tong, whether it is GFL EV, Inox Wind, Inox Solar, Inox Clean.
Right.
We are not inhibiting ourselves that there's 100 rupees, you take 20, you take 20, you take 20. That's not how it works. Like I said to you, we are capitalizing every arm, keeping in mind what we want to do over the next 2 years. There's no point planning 5 years, 6 years ahead.
Sure.
Next 2 years, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? How much do I need? Right? So let's say, and giving you an example, in GFL EV, it's a subsidiary of Gujarat Fluoro, which is a very large arm.
Right.
We said all its cash flow now, barring 200-300 crores every year capex, whatever it may be, 1,500, 2,000 a bit, whatever it is, we want to keep within that company. That's how we think.
Got it.
We're debt averse. We like cash on the balance sheet. So we said GFL EV, we own 100%. If we're going to spend 6,000-7,000 crores, obviously we'll put 1,000, 2,000. Where else do we get it from? And how do we scale it up? You can't just do tuk, then wait for an IPO or whatever it is. So we said we'll go and raise capital outside.
Sure.
And the whole ecosystem we had built and our pedigree and our size and what we're trying to create, we went and raised capital, 1,000 crores at 3 billion.
Yeah.
I'd also said publicly at that point in time, we're looking to raise another 1,000.
Yeah.
Sooner than later, we will announce that. So that it's fully capitalized. So we've, say, for example, pumped in 2,000 equity. Say we've raised 1,000 equity and another 1,000, that's 4,000. That's large enough for it to reach to a great point, throwing up a lot of cash, which can self-sustain. And at some point in time, we'll list it. That's the DNA of the group. So that you're on your own. I don't want you to lean on me or lean on any other venture in it.
Right.
The same thing we did with Inox Wind. It went through hell. We were losing 500 crores a year in that arm. We had about 3,000 crores plus of debt. We moved in, went, raised some capital, pumped in capital, built it again, raised more capital. One thing which is good about our group, or maybe one thing which is there's no confusion between that and me, is we want everybody to make money with the group. So over the past 2.5 years, we've probably been one of the largest wealth creators in the Indian market across our companies. And it's not कि आपने 100 कमाया. A lot of promoters, अरे उसके 100 करोड़ बन गए. अरे भाई, मेरे अगर 10,000 बन रहे हैं और आपके 100 बन रहे हैं, why am I stressing about your 100? I say, please come, please make. So that's why I said,
everybody can make enough.
Everybody. And when we make, you got to take that risk back in the day.
Right.
अगर आप risk ही नहीं लोगे and you expect, it's not an FD. Don't ask me to make 30 times, 20 times the return and
You're not willing to take risk.
willing to take any risk. But today, like I said, when we build ventures, it's capitalized upfront because we've already pumped in 1,000 crores through ourselves or raising capital. So to your question in Inox Clean, which is solar and neo, on a piece of paper, I went and raised capital for the first time in September 24. That's the first time the company came up. We raised close to about 500 crores at a valuation which was upwards of a couple of thousand crores on a piece of paper. Because we were clear what we were building.
Sure.
Everyone had faith in what we'll do. It's a different matter that we've scaled that vision 3 times now. So people are, hopefully at the time when we list or whatever we do, people have made a killing. But which is fine. I wanted to do that if you take that bet and keep coming up in every venture. So your question was, how do we allocate capital?
Right.
We raise capital in every business, keeping in mind what we want to do 2 years ahead. Those which are listed obviously have their own free cash flows.
Right.
When newer ventures, we look at 2 years and do that. In Inox Solar, for example, we looked at X capacity and we've said we want to set up 5 gigawatt, for example.
Right.
That would entail an investment of maybe 2,500 crores. At the clean level, we had raised enough capital to build X megawatt in Inox Neo and X capacity in solar. So what we went and did was we went and raised some more capital recently. So we went and raised another 300 crores. We are contemplating raising more capital prior to the IPO as we move forward. I don't know if it happens, doesn't happen, when we'll IPO, blah, blah, blah. But there are different ththings going on. We're thinking of raising capital, we're thinking of doing an IPO. We'll see as we move along. If nothing else, as promoters, we'll pump in more capital. But every company in the group is independent, unless you're a subsidiary, obviously.
Right.
But each of you need to raise your own capital and grow at that pace. If you don't have the capital, then, hold back.
Right.
Raise that capital and then do it.
Got it.
Unless your free cash flows are large enough. Like Gujarat flow, the free cash flows are large enough. It needs no capital, it can deploy elsewhere. EV needed to raise capital, we went and raised, besides what we wanted to put in.
Right. So it's not a zero-sum game.
It's not a zero-sum game.
Everybody can independently raise
Absolutely.
capital because they have their separate P&Ls, they have their separate...
Absolutely.
How do you think of then management and how has that been in your case? I mean, what does it mean to hire leadership which is prolific in some of these companies? Is it mostly because, sometimes the word on the street is also promoter-led families. It face difficulty in hiring like senior leadership or professional leadership. What's that been?
No, I
in
think,
your case?
Jivraj, I can say this. For me, I don't think there's been any concern around that. I think we've been very clear. And I'll give you that context in renewables, right? We have wind, solar, green, neo, and the clean, right? Solar manufacturing. 5 of these arms. We've gone over the past 18 months that I've rebuilt the entire renewable arm over different points in time. We've gone and recruited 5 different CEOs. And each of these CEOs are completely independent, very strong guys, a good mix of Indian and MNC. So they're not only Lalajis, as they call many times, like you said, and they're not only MNCs, because we believe an ideal mix of Indian and MNC. You need Lalaji attitude, you need risk-taking ability, entrepreneurial ability, and you also need a very systematic approach sometimes.
Sure.
So different CEOs, some of them are Indianized, some of them are MNC types.
Are these all external or are these some of them are internal promotions?
So what we've done, because our entire renewable capex program is now almost 3 billion over the next 12 to 18 months, the erstwhile Inox Wind CEO, we've made him the CEO, the group CEO for the entire renewable arm.
Got it. Okay.
And we've now got 5 other CEOs in place for Inox Wind, for Inox Solar, for Inox Neo, for the EPC arm, and for the O&M arm, Inox. So 2 of them are the big boys under, the group CEOs, 1 big boy, and then we've got 2 big boys. One being the Inox Wind CEO, who has the Inox Green CEO and the project CEO under him.
Sure.
And then we've got 1 big boy who's the CEO of Inox Clean, who oversees the IPP, and under him we have a junior CEO, a CEO, full-fledged CEO, who oversees solar, who also reports to him.
Got it.
So what's also happening is the Inox Wind CEO reports to my group CEO and to me, or works very closely, because strategy and the ability to build or put up larger vision comes from me. The entire Inox Clean setup, which is the big CEO and the Chotu CEO, so solar CEO, both of them, the Clean CEO reports to me.
Got
The
it.
solar CEO works closely with Kailash. Some of it will change.
Right.
But what we wanted to do was bring in the ambition, aggression to take calls, build, and not do, open an Excel, IRR, aage piche. We build, we just decide, move.
Nice.
So it's 5 CEOs plus the group CEO. Three of them work very, very closely with me. And everyone knows you have access to me at any point in time. You message me at 3 in the morning, you'll get a reply within 1 hour.
Oh, wow.
Unless I'm on a flight. I'm up many times at night. So you'll get replies, you'll get emails.
That's amazing.
And so they decide on their own. But ambition, growth, strategy, if you want a deal, we will take that deal. Those things come from the top. Other than that, they're operating their arms.
That's incredible. I'm curious to understand, like, how do you then spend your time between like brainstorming, thinking about like macro vision, hiring, I'm guessing will become a crucial part of it. Like, where does your time best get spent, considering that there is so much movement which is execution oriented, while there are so many greenfield opportunities which are being set up, new plants being set up, a lot of capex. Like, how do you think about that, and where is your leverage?
I think the past 6 months I've spent a lot of time in building the team.
Sure.
The new CEOs.
Right.
We've had 3 new CEOs join us over the past 4 months.
From external organizations.
External. No, Inox is new, solar is new.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Wind, the CEO moved to the group CEO, so we had to bring in an external guy because the scale is just different today as opposed to the past 4 or 5 years. So a lot of that, getting the right team and the right people. And to be honest, we've had maybe 15 C-level people who've come in over the past 12 months across the board. 2-3 of them were Dutch as well.
Right.
What's different about us is if you can't, there's only that much I can make out in an interview and references and so on. But I'm very candid who I am and what I'm building.
Right.
So if you bullshit your way through it and come in, and in 60 days it's crap, you're going to be out. It's as simple as that. No nonsense.
Yeah.
Number 1. Number 2.
Can we also go into further detail on what's worked with some of these like good folks? Like, what do you think, like, what stands out in a leader that you really look for, and then how have they executed? Like, because again, hiring is, I think, the foremost concern for most folks, right? And hiring at that level is a vantage point that you perhaps have, which is unique. So what is tactically, what do you look for
think
tactically?
2 things. One, at the leadership level, you need to be passionate. Why you just want a job, or I think Inox is big, I'm safe, secure. No.
Right.
What do you want to do? What is your ambition?
Right.
Unless you're ambitious, unless you are driven, it doesn't work for me. I don't care whether you're educated, uneducated, whether you speak Hindi or Punjabi. Second, you need to have a flair for numbers. If you don't know numbers, you can't deal with me. Because if you're a leader, how can you not know numbers?
Right.
आपको capex नहीं पता, आपको IRR नहीं पता, मोटा, and I'm not saying 0.111, 90% you must know. Because I take decisions like this. And if you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what you're talking in front of me, get out of my room. It doesn't work.
Right.
I can be very soft and I can be very ruthless. The appearance doesn't seem so, but that's how it is. Ask Kavarna, she'll be like, I only know one side. But I think people just need to be very passionate and driven by what we're trying to do. Because my vision is very clear. Do you want to be part of that vision? Do you want to create value? Do you want to be the best? Do you want to be the largest? One of the largest. We may be number 3, we may be number 2.
Sure.
We may fail sometimes as well.
Right.
It's not a big deal. But quickly get up, fix it, get the right things going. I remember till 9 months ago, I said I will never go into solar. Because I said it's a Chinese playground. There's no margin. Then ALMM came in and I said 100 crore investment, 50 people are doing. Where's the niche? Then ALCM, we were meeting the government. We figured ALCM. Then that's a 2,000-3,000 crore play. So it's a big boy game.
Yeah.
And then we said when it comes. So we announced a solar foray. The day after they announced some regulation which required larger investments. So I'm not offended if I've said something, or I'm not going to not backtrack. Not a commitment. But if I think I've said something wrong, or if I think now the opportunity is bigger, or the games have changed, it's not ki arey mana kar diya kaise jaoge.
Right.
Everyone knows. I always said no for solar.
Sure.
And now we're investing far more in solar than we've ever done in Inox Wind. Inox Wind doesn't need it because we are anyways the second largest player in the country today.
Sure.
And we're investing a lot more. But you're going to learn, imbibe, and adapt.
Right.
That's very quick decision making. And I think one of the things in our group, or at least with Dad and me, we are paranoid. We are perpetually thinking, what next?
What's next?
Where do we go? Are you going to do something better? So, just a couple of days ago, we had our EBP coming in and the numbers were very large for one of the businesses. And we have a thumb rule for HR cost, for example. It's 2%. Right? It's 2.1. I said, charity kar rahe hain kya? Why? Just because you're making more, that means ki 5-10 crore se kya farak padta hai? Let's stick to the norms which we've established. If you're fat somewhere, cut it. It doesn't work. So don't lose or defocus from fundamentals. And I'll give you another anecdote here on this, Jivraj. It's important just for startups. The day you think you've arrived in life, or the day you think you're the best, and you're not paranoid, different levels of paranoia, yeah, it's going to be the beginning of your downfall. And I say this because in Inox Wind, when I started Wind, I was 21. When I used to be interviewing, meeting people, I'm sitting in the room waiting for them. We're waiting for Devansh Jain. I was a kid. Ye aap to bachcha hai, ye kya karega? And I met about 300 people to learn the wind sector, interviewing them, knowing numbers, knowing everything before I went forward. Yeah? Dad used to grill me on everything. What happened with us is when I was doing that, interviewing people, learning, you had every big boy. You had the Reliances, you had the Shri Rams, you had the Siva Sankarans, you had, of course, you had Enercon, Vestas, Region. I can name Bharat Forge. I'm talking about back in the day. Today we are way bigger than most of these groups. They would come back and say, "ये तो बच्चा ये क्या करेगा? कुछ होगा ही नहीं." We are talking to, and Tulsi Bhai became very close later. Of course, he passed away. But we wanted to meet an erstwhile company called Enercon and Suzlon back in the day. And they just said, "No, हम तो मिलेंगे नहीं. Junior लोग मिलेंगे. आप 200-300 megawatt भी लगा रहे हो," which was large at that time. You deal with our people. And we said we are putting large investments. Yeah, that was very large that time. You want to meet the promoter, get a better deal. कुछ आगे पीछे हो जाएगा. You want that comfort, which happens. Nothing doing. And they said, ये क्या करेंगे? ये तो कुछ करेंगे ही नहीं. ये तो छोटा, ये तो वैसे ही बच्चा है. Group भी छोटा है. Or maybe mid-sub, whatever it was. And where did we come from? We're the second largest in India today. All those other guys have been cleaned up. Number one. Number two, the largest. That total holding in that company is not, in terms of value, is not even 1/3 my value in Inox Wind. Forget the group.
Wow.
So I don't want to talk about people
of
specifically. But if you own 2% of a company or 8% of a company, and I own 50% of a company, and you're double my value, you're 16%.
Correct.
I still own 50%.
Right.
So I'm just saying
Yeah.
that the day you think you are the best, or nobody else can come, and our entire team knows, don't ignore any competitor, because those guys who are chota, they are the most hungry because they have nothing to lose.
Correct.
The big boys are lethargic and lazy.
Right.
They are the ones who will lose first.
Yeah.
These chotus come from the back and they become King Kongs.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that is, I mean, at your stature, scale, size, and years of experience, if you're the one saying that paranoia, hunger, staying at the top, not ignoring competition is necessary, I think that's the energy I think so many entrepreneurs need. I love that. I love that passion. Thank you for sharing. We've covered macro, we've covered capital allocation, we've also covered manufacturing. Beyond hiring, I think I'd love to understand just, I mean, from an attention viewpoint, right? Like, I mean, how you said 2 years sochna hai, but 5-10 years mein, do you have a viewpoint on where newer opportunities for entrepreneurs lie? Like, will recycling be a thing? In which spaces will that come up? Because I'm sure you have a lot of like backward synergies that you have suppliers for, etc. Right? So can you maybe paint a picture on opportunities beyond the ones that you are capturing that are worth, let's say, building smaller businesses in?
Look, I think we see a little bit of that from our family office, because it's a little bit of a diversification. People are investing, the team looks after. We keep hearing, or when you're reading BCGs, McKinsey's, different people come in and giving gyan. I think obviously from our perspective, we're completely focused on energy transition today. And obviously chemicals is the largest in the sector it plays in. But I think there are a lot of upcoming opportunities around drones, digital, defense, within energy transition, a lot of other smaller opportunities, which is energy storage systems, services around that. Like you mentioned, recycling. Recycling is going to be a big part going forward.
Right.
The battery supply chain in India, right? It's going to develop over a period of time.
Right.
Whether it's charging infrastructure, supply chain, servicing. Obviously, EV manufacturing is a different ballgame. Robotics, AI. I think a lot of it comes from the US, but I think India's cost structure, our IIT capabilities, as many times people say, I think these are areas which I think are going to throw up much larger opportunities.
Yeah. Within the manufacturing floor, are you also seeing like more automation, more like surveillance, more applications of technology that make your processes way more efficient?
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing that, for example, the solar plants, which you're setting up the cell, is completely automated. The first time I didn't know much about solar. When you look at how they do, you have these unmanned vehicles moving, picking up, putting, of course, you have robotic arms, which are normal things which you have in auto and so on. It's crazy the way automation is happening. I had the fortune of being in, for the robotaxi launch, which Elon Musk did. in Frisco.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable, the stuff you saw. The robos, I forget the name. What's it called? Forget the name.
Yeah.
He names them whatever he names them.
Yeah.
They're phenomenal. So one of them poured a beer for me.
Right.
One of them was playing the guitar for me. So you're just seeing, and unless you're on the ground, you see some of the stuff. I haven't been to China in a couple of years. Spent a lot of time back in the day. But there's just so much happening on the ground, which is tech-enabled, which is way beyond what you're even thinking. It's funny, there's this program in Singularity, which I want to do. I'd done a day course in India a couple of years ago. They tell you what's going to come 10 years down the line. And I saw this. This was in 2015, I did this. And they told us cinemas are not going to exist in the future.
Really?
I said, pagal ho gaya? Is he crazy? The cinema business was part of our group at that point in time. Dad built it. And I said, this guy's cuckoo. And I went up to that person. I said, why do you say that? Because he said, you had big screens, you had thin screens, computers also. You're now going to have massive screens, which will be very, very cost competitive. You're going to have a little pod which will go on the screen and you'll see everything. This is 2015. We still had those big TVs, or maybe a 30-inch flat screen was so expensive.
Right.
I don't think 99% of the people could buy it. I couldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy it. And look at what's happened today. I used to be at the movies every week. I haven't been to a cinema in 4 years. We've got now 100-inch screens at home. I know staff at our place in their quarter, they have like 40-inch screens. Everyone has it in Gao's village. It's so cheap.
Right.
You also have these little pods which you just put on the white screen. The kids see it. They have a little area, the white wall where they see Peppa Pig and all this stuff. It's that little 2,000-3,000 rupee screen.
Project
you don't need that high-end quality. So they're seeing that. And I'm sure this is only going to evolve as we move forward. So
lots is happening. Technology.
Lots is happening. You got to meet these people, spend time. But like I think in India, energy transition, digital, recycling, the entire EV battery supply chain, defense, robotics, I think this is where you're going to see a lot on the manufacturing side.
Sure.
Services is obviously medical services,
many other
health
things.
centers, and so on and so forth.
Got it. Well, that's amazing. The other side of your business is dealing with these large B2B clients, right? And that could include like stakeholders like the government, also like larger OEMs to whom you supply to. Can you maybe from that lens, from a B2B selling large order lens, talk about what the learning has been? Like, what do you go ahead and pitch? Of course, you have the capacity, you have a great product, you have the highest quality standards. But post that, what does it take to like close some of this, right? At that scale, can you maybe chime in and share a
look? In the beginning, when you start, obviously once you've reached a position, then it's different. But when you're starting up, right? We did that in GFL with our fluoropolymer business. We were competing with people like DuPont, Daikin, and 3M. And we did that in Inox when we started, because like I said, you had 30 players. You had a lot of MNCs, you had the larger groups. What were we saying? And what was different? We were at it. We kept going. Kabhi na kabhi to aoge, koi na koi girega, cost competency jo bhi. It's not that you went from 0 to 100 in 1 year. That build out took 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Today, then you grow much faster. You're talking about your pedigree, doing the right things, saying the right things, trying to do the best that you can, the best quality you can, being as competitive as you can, being available if there are issues. Like I said, meeting people. There's no ego. Someone wants to meet, we'll be there. Not for the sake of meeting or doing time pass. If there are layers who can do it, then there's no point us going. But we're happy to talk, happy to go, get our hands dirty. We know numbers, we know the businesses inside out. It's not that you're sitting on and seeing a 200-degree view and you don't know jack about your business. We know inside out about our businesses. And I've seen that with Gautam Bhai. I've always said this publicly. There are two people who inspire me. Dad, for his perseverance, resilience, and just being at it. And Gautam Bhai for the audacious targets he has. And every time I think I've achieved something in life, my mom, my wife, and my sister bring me down to earth. But if I'm still flying, you go to Gautam Bhai. He just says, "Kya dekh raha hai? Itna dekh, ye kar, wo kar, blah, blah, blah." And for someone who's worth 100 billion, 200 billion, it's not even about the money. It's about agar 1 trillion ki value nahi create kari, to kya achieve kara isme life mein. So, someone who's there thinks like that, then I'm a nobody here. It's as simple as that.
That's amazing.
That's how I look at things.
Lovely. No, thank you so much for sharing. I think the last piece of the stakeholders are investors, right? Like, so you now like multiple like public companies, multiple on the way as well. And you have like institutional investors in some of these unlisted players. What have you, just broadly like dealing with capital allocators, what has been the learning on that front, right? Like at that scale again, like do you think there's something specific that people should keep in mind, etc.? What is it about delivering ROI to these like people who are, shareholders? What do you think about that?
Look, I've been born and brought up in a listed company environment, right? So whether it's unlisted or listed, we always
Right.
think from a listing perspective, always think from a perspective that there's somebody.
Yeah.
I may own 80%, I may own 90%, I may own 50%, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
We're still going to do the best that we can in whichever venture it is.
Right.
Obviously, when you have external capital, you have that incremental added responsibility. And to my mind, I don't think it is, because I'm still going to do the best, whether I own it or whether you are a stakeholder in it.
Right.
But that little obligation that we got to deliver, we got to achieve it because they've shown their faith. And this happened with me because when we built Wind in 2015, it became the largest company in our group in terms of valuation, profitability wise, maybe it was the second biggest. Investors poured their faith. They minted money in the first 2 years. Obviously, thereafter the sector went down, people lost. But at that point in time, I'd gone from being at the top to being untouchable in the gutter. And it really hurt me at that time because I did nothing wrong. You can blame me, which is fine. I'm not crying.
Attributable to you.
30 players in the sector go under. What do? I was the only player who survived, who struggled, took the headaches, the pains, which was a nightmare daily to be around without a single rupee of haircut to anybody. And you were hearing, duba diya, ye kar diya, family issues, X, Y, Z. But you just had to go on. I was clear. Because it was a temporary pain.
Right.
It wasn't कि it's a Fuji film type moment कि आप digital है तो आप you're being stupidly passionate. That pain should have lasted a year, it lasted 5 years. That's a different problem. But at that point in time, my mind was very clear. When my time comes, and hopefully it will come at some point in time, I said I'll have an army of investors backing me for every venture I do. I'll do my best. Obviously, I want them to mint so much money. And if you see what we're doing today, is before we build out a venture, it's capitalized. Yeah. We have an army, if I may say so. It's not a couple of people, 20, 30, 50 people who will come into every venture we're building because they know we are pouring our money and we will make it successful to the best of our abilities. You could fail in life, and I don't think that's bad. But you have to learn, adapt, and grow again. So I think across institutional investors also, over the past 2.5 years, I'll give this example of the past 2.5 years where we've rebuilt this group, where we went from about 6,000 crores of market cap when we had a realignment split in our group to now about 85, 90,000 crores in the listed arms. Yeah. Unlisted is different, right? What were we doing? We were going, talking, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is what went wrong, or for government reasons, or for X reasons, or Y reasons, or this was the split. Let us do what we're doing. And we kept consistently saying, we will do this, we will do this, we will do this. So if I wanted to achieve 100, I would say 80. There's no point over-promising and under-deliver. I was always under-promising, over-delivering. And as that kept happening, the value kept increasing. We went and raised capital, raised one amount of capital after 2.5 years. So, I don't know, I spent a month and a half trying to raise that capital. The subsequent capital, when we delivered, we performed, took 10 days. So I think what people are looking for really are credible promoters. Are you giving it your best? Are you walking the talk? Failure is a part and parcel of life. Nobody is God. Nobody can guarantee we'll never fail. I've failed. I've been through hell. I've come back. Even today I say things and dynamics change. Sometimes, say tomorrow I've promised something and there's a ban now. What do? I can navigate that, try and cut costs or try and go to another market and do things. Right. So they just want to know, do you have the doggedness to succeed? Are you ambitious? Are you persevering? Are you diligent? And if you are, they're going to back you. Right. Bit by bit by bit. No one's going to come and pour $100 million on you. Yeah. Maybe $1 million, they'll take that risk. As you deliver, go and raise more capital if you need capital. Or build new ventures. So I think that's my position. I'm accessible across the investor community. I'm right there. So I have a large IR team today. It's not as if you've reached there, so I'm not accessible. Yes, I can't speak to everybody because that's not my core competence, spending all day on IR. My core competence is to build ventures. I do that once in a quarter. I'll go and meet everybody. Obviously, the large investors have access to me. We have investor calls. We have teams moving. That's how we do it. But I've not disappeared. No matter what the market cap is, no matter how many ventures we have, if people are there who've taken large positions, they want to understand something which the team can't, and they still want me, I will do that.
Sure.
It's also, I'm grateful to them because these people have been kind enough to talk to teams now and understand. Yes, they'll say once in 6 months, DJ, aapse ek baar baat karna hai, just to understand the perspective. What do you think can go right, wrong? How do you think it is? That's fair. And that's why we've also now started doing vision days, which is what we're doing. We've started it for once in a year, but possibly maybe we'll do it twice in a year, where we go out and tell all the things going in the group. And then we are all accessible. You want to meet the CEOs, you want to meet Dad, you want to meet me, the group CFO. We'll come and meet anybody and everybody and tell you what we want to do.
No, that's amazing. Again, super comprehensive, and thanks for being so transparent in sharing everything that happens behind the scenes, especially on at this scale of capital, right? And the hunger, I think, is just like constantly, I think, standing out. As we approach the end, I'd love to maybe just take a bird's eye view of, again, you mentioned in bits and pieces what you do and what the leadership style is, but what were things that you didn't know at all and you've had to learn from scratch maybe? And if you had to attribute like a couple of things that went right, 2-3 things that you have done particularly right, and that of course attribute so much of the turnaround, success, large scale to the ventures, what would you say it is about you that gets it?
I think maybe what I've been right or done right to some extent, I know my business, I've built them from scratch. So I know my businesses inside, I know my numbers inside.
You know them full.
I know issues.
Yeah,
yes, I'm not an engineer to be honest, but our head of engineering, who's now 72 and he's going to retire from here, he tells me, you know more about the turbine saab than even I know. I say, Manglik saab, aap kaisi baatein karte ho yaar? He's climbed the turbine five times in a day. I've to been in a lift once, I can't climb the turbine. Having said that, I think if you know your businesses, you don't need to be an expert. You may not be an expert in operations, an engineer or a chartered accountant or a legal head, but you got to get your hands wet, dirty and know mota of everything. So problem aati hai, aap solve kar sakte ho. Confidence kaise aati hai? Pata hi nahi hai. Aap upar dekhte rahoge kya? You look at your CEO, you look at your father, or who will you look at?
Sure.
Or your mother, whatever it may be. The point is, as long as you know your numbers, you know your businesses, you know ye karke aisa ho sakta hai ye. I don't know solar. You think Dad knew EV? No. We see ideas, we see how we can create value, how we can be the biggest, look at arbitrage rather than 100 people competing in it, niche areas, and then we start putting it together. That's what we excel at, and that's what I would think we are trying to excel at. So, leadership style is knowing things, not leaving it on people. Yes, you need experts to run certain things. If you ask me how do you make a cell, I don't know how to make a cell. But do I know what I want in terms of cost, what I want in terms of bringing the right people, adding enough cushion? For example, when we were looking at the solar ventures, a great example, different numbers were coming from different people. Obviously, I didn't have the time to interview 300 people. We had about 20 people, different numbers. We said it looks too high. China, jao. We heard X number. We went again. Our team is currently sitting in China. And that's probably why I could get out today.
Yeah.
We've cut down by another 15%. So we are ruthless in cost. So 2 things which stand out for us is, one, we got to know our businesses. Sure. I've seen that even with Gautam Bhai. He knows his business. I don't know how many businesses he has. Probably has a new business every day. But he knows macro, mota of every business. Papa knows everything about the companies. He doesn't run the renewable arm. He gets a weekly update in what we call our CEO review. 1 hour, he gets an update about everything. He'll give ideas, suggestions, improvements. Anybody wants to go to him for a sounding board, he's there. But we know our businesses. Second, we are very, very, very ruthless and efficient in terms of capex. A lot of promoters, unka mind hai ye nikalo, wo nikalo. As promoters, we only pump money into our businesses. So the whole mindset is also कि इधर तो एक पैसा निकलेगा नहीं. Either every rupee counts. No matter, it may be $1 billion project, it may be a 10 crore project. It doesn't matter. My capex numbers, my costs have to be the leanest and the lowest. And I'm not saying by compromising on quality.
Sure.
So that's how, I think those are 2 things which we've learned. Third, obviously, is we are always debt averse.
Yeah.
So I'm never sleeping now thinking I owe you money or I owe somebody else money. Right. I'm not talking about working capital cycles.
Of course.
Yeah. Receivable late ho gaya, payable late ho gaya. Those are part and parcel of business.
Right.
But there is no debt, net debt, in any of our manufacturing companies. The IPP arm is different because those are obviously 75, 25, 80, 20, 18-year money. But that's ring-fenced to that asset earning annuity from the government of India, obviously. So that's how we see it. Cost.
Building from scratch.
knowing your numbers, knowing your businesses inside out, and just being very, very efficient
Yeah.
in building things out.
That's brilliant. I think that summarizes it really, really well. And I think that's the foundation of any successful business. So I love that. But this comprehensive part is like so good. Like I think the building from scratch really stands out. This is amazing. I think I have a final couple of questions just on your personal persona. Let's maybe take a better outlook at what Devansh does, right? So, I mean, if life beyond, talk to us about maybe life beyond Inox GFL. I know you mentioned that there's so much happening in the company that you barely get any time, but you're a dad of two. You have perhaps other interests as well. And, I'd love to know like things that are happening beyond work.
To be honest, Jivraj, I think I'm a boring person in that sense. If you ask Avarna, she'll say she has no other interest in life. She's even complaining about me spending time with the kids. But on the lighter side, obviously, my son's 11 and a half. My daughter's 8. I love spending time with them to the extent that I can. Am I a very involved person? No, that's Amarna. That's my wife. I love chilling, being together, playing a little bit of cricket. Aryavardhan's obsessed with cricket. So we see a lot of matches. Nana runs the team and is forever discussing cricket all the time.
That's amazing.
So I think a little bit of that. I like to unwind now by going out at times at night with friends, either home or there. The past 5-6 years have just been very, very hectic. It's very hectic, but in a very positive manner today, which I love. I don't want to change that. But I like to unwind at night, go with friends, chill, come over, do that. I love traveling. Besides work travel, it doesn't happen too much, but I love being in Dubai. So with the kids, mom, dad, Avarna, whatever, my sister, my brother-in-law, travel is fun. I love listening to music. I think that's broadly about it. I think other than that may sound too boring to you.
No, not at all. I think that's helpful because sometimes we don't get to understand the people behind these ventures and we get to only see, the numbers behind what's happening. So the objective is to just maybe get a better outlook. One question I often ask to decode that better is, how would a group of your friends describe you? What is the answer to that?
So there are two sides to it.
Okay.
If they're talking
Give
crap,
me both.
if they talk crap,
Give me the crap
they'll
version.
be like he's the craziest guy because I'm like the coach jester, I'm like the clown.
Wow.
I can swing from being very serious to talking crap, utter rubbish and gossip. And they're like, this guy is just full of life, talking shit. Nice. What he says, there's no filter. I'm the most undiplomatic guy. So the other day, a friend of mine, she was just very oddly, she looked ugly. I said, why are you looking like a booth? What are you calling that girl? I said, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think on the other side, they'll say, if it comes to work, he's probably the most diligent guy and the most ambitious guy we've come across. So any of these guys have any work, most of them, are chilling in life, to be honest. If they need any work discussions or advice or inputs, they all come in here. But they know, there are two sides to me. It's this very, very clear, driven, ambitious side. And then there's this idiotic side where I'm talking crap and I can be a clown and a jester, whatever you want to call it.
Very interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. The other thing is, if you had to maybe just like for a thinking exercise, right? Let's say in a world where Inox GFL did not exist, what would Devansh Jain be doing?
I love beaches.
Nice.
You'll probably find me somewhere on the beach.
Okay.
Doing what? I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
beach chilling.
I'm a beach person.
Nice.
I can just be on the beach doing
All the
nothing. Yeah. Probably be boating or
nice.
doing shisha or some trap, something or the other.
Fair enough. No, this has been amazing. The last question is a fairly standard one, but what we do for the last one is maybe go back to the point in time when you, let's say, came back. So let's go to the CMU graduation, right? If you could tell yourself anything on that day, this is again a thinking exercise. We want to benefit from the years of work that you have put in since that day to now, and maybe just understand and grasp all the learnings. What would you tell yourself on the graduation day, knowing that you would be doing everything that you have since?
At that point in time, obviously nobody's ever prepared for hardships or crazy hardships.
Yeah.
Anybody, whether you run a restaurant, whether you run a cafe, everyone has challenges, right? Up and down. But I think what we went through in wind was unparalleled. And I've heard that from many of the industrialists, many of the government ministers who now run renewable energy, said, "Aap aag se nikal kar aa gaye, so you're built for the future." But at that time, when you're going through that fire, you want to jump off the well every day. Yeah. So, not that I would ever, but I have a balcony. And every day I'm just standing, what am I doing? 5 years. legal issues, hassles, problems, running away, resignations, no money. And this is a large group, but this company, and then we had a split going on at that point in time as well. So I think what I've said many times, hard work plus resilience and passion. Nothing can remove passion. Resilience is equal to good luck. Many people say luck खराब चल रहा था. रोज luck नहीं आता है. गधा भी बहुत काम करता है. मजदूर भी बहुत काम करता है. So why is he not Gautam Bhai? Why is he not Elon Musk? It's resilience and passion. Are you taking breaks with passion? Are you resilient about various things? Not the same context, but what I'm trying to say is it's not just hard work. Sometimes it's not hard work. You just need to go through the struggles. It's resilience and perseverance. So when you go through it, your day will come. And that is good luck. So I think to myself at that point in time, I would just say, you're going to go through ups and downs. Don't get bogged down. Don't run away. There's no one-way street here.
Right.
It's going to come down. It's going to go up. And it's not going to be like you'll go through gata, yeah. Life is over, world is ending. I hope nobody goes through that. But ups and downs are a part and parcel of life. You're going to succeed in certain things. You're not going to succeed in certain things. Be focused, be driven, be resilient. And hopefully you will come out on tops here in most of the ventures.
Sure. Well, that's amazing. I think that summarizes the end very well. Thank you so much, Devansh. It's been such a pleasure and absolute honor. I think your energy is very contagious, and I love the passion with which you have spoken. Super unfiltered, authentic, and so much of the insights of like how to run such a large business have come through today. But what I think is the most interesting is how driven and passionate you still are. I really appreciate all the time, and this conversation was everything that I imagined and very worth the 6-8 month wait that we went through it. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Devraj. It's just been a pleasure, and love being on this pod.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.